When I think about loyalty, I think about it, I guess, from the sort of dictionary definition. It's a feeling of strong support. It's about commitment. It's about fidelity. It's commitment even through adversity. We often think of loyalty in reference to our interpersonal relationships, but loyalty is just as important in our relationship with organizations, even with values. You think about loyalty to one's family, but there's also loyalty to family values or to your family's values. I think that for me, a good example, a very appropriate example of loyalty would be my loyalty to Brookstone. You know, I went to Brookstone, came to Brookstone many years ago, and I was in the, I think, third graduating high school class, and I've never left. You know, even though I went away to college and what have you, and I've had a couple of careers, I've never really left Brookstone. I'm loyal to Brookstone because I feel that Brookstone had played a critical part in making me who I am. And as an educator, as an administrator, I know that one of the ways that you evaluate the strength of an academic institution is by how loyal the alumni group is. You know, when you look at the college rankings, one of the things they look at is the involvement and the giving of alumni. How loyal are they to that institution? So I think it is very important for institutions to instill the importance of loyalty to students, and not just the loyalty to that institution, but loyalty to the values, loyalty to the people who are important in their lives. I think one of the important things to remember about loyalty is that we can be loyal to so many things, even loyalty to your own personal values. And it is something that I think that we should begin to instill in children, in ourselves, as soon as possible. Brookstone is the fine institution that it is because of the loyalty of the alumni base, of the community supporters, of the trustees. Brookstone would not be the organization that it is. The students would not have the opportunity to get this education were it not for the commitment that others have made to the institution. One of the stories that I would often tell my students was a story that I learned in business school, and it was a contrast of two men. And they started at a company on the very same day. And 30 years later, when they retired, they both started in the mailroom, and one ended up still in the mailroom, and the other had become the CEO of the company. And someone made this observation and asked the CEO, what do you think was the difference? What do you think caused you to end up as CEO of the company while others were stuck in the same position in which they started? And he said, because some come to work for the salary, for whatever they pay me. They come to work for X number of dollars a year. But when I came to work for the company. I was committed to the company, and I was loyal to the company even when I was assigned jobs that I did not like. I had a commitment, I made a pledge to the organization, and that, he said, was the reason for his success. So loyalty spans every aspect of your life, every aspect of your life.
The amazing thing is it took a lot of courage for the initial founders of this school to literally just plop a school in the middle of a 1,500-acre farm. You know, think of the courage they had to have that kind of vision to do something that's better for the community, but they had no idea whether it was going to succeed or fail, or because at that time there wasn't anything around out here. It was just a 1,500-acre farm. So it took a lot of courage to do that from a trustee standpoint. It takes a lot of courage to go through the capital campaigns to, can we raise this money to make this improvement or to make this kind of program, or can we do these things? You don't know when you embark on those types of things whether they're going to work or not, but it just takes a lot of courage to do those kinds of things. But drilling courage down to the school itself, the thing that's so important about courage is that it's part of the whole student. It's part of what we're trying to do. We're not trying to just give the students a great college preparatory education. We're trying to do a lot more with the student, and courage is one of those values that makes people more than what they are. It causes people to step out some, and it can be as small as just the courage it takes for some of these kindergartners to get on the stage in the Turner Center to in the alphabet. The courage for these kids to do their preschool speeches in front of the whole auditorium, and the courage of a senior giving their senior speech there. But it can, it's all part of trying to encourage the students to go beyond what they would otherwise do. It's okay to fail. It's okay to hold your hand up in a classroom and ask a question that somebody might otherwise perceive as a dumb question. But in doing that, you're building courage, and you're building a value that you can take with you beyond the school. And so the whole premise behind us encouraging courage here at Brookstone is we're wanting people to get outside. We want people to take a risk. We want people to be empathetic. We want them to listen to other people. And so I think it was amazing that the early founders, 70 some odd years ago, really recognized that courage was going to be one of the most basic fibers of this school if we were going to achieve our goal, and that is to create a whole person, to create people who can leave Brookstone and go make the world a better place. So I think it was and is and will continue to be one of the better values that you have. And quite frankly, it's probably one of the most important values, because if you don't have courage, then it's hard to, if you're too afraid to do something, if you don't have courage, it's hard to go through the other values without courage. So it's one of the foundational premises, I think, for the school.
But I look back, I remember the old crest, from Brookstone way as far as I can remember back, and wisdom was one of the things listed on three things then. So it's been important to the school the whole time. So it's worth thinking about what it really means. And to me, there's a couple of ways that I have historically thought of that. One is that it is knowledge, just to define it. It is knowledge and experience, and then there has to be some application to that. It has to be applied in some meaningful and constructive way for it to really be wisdom. The knowledge is kind of easy to talk about here at Brookstone because, that's what all these students are doing right now. They're assimilating all of this information, and there is so much information these days that I don't know how they do it all. There's a lot of teaching and learning going on, all different styles of how to do that. But that's not the only thing that wisdom is, because we all know a lot of people that have a lot of knowledge that aren't wise. And so the second part to it is the experience. And, you have to go through life experiences, good and bad things, and, through interactions with other people. And it's really helpful if it's people different than you that, that have different ways they think about things. But, relationships, all the struggles, it seems like the experiences that teach you the most are the ones that are the hardest. So, a lot of times it's the times where people go through hardships that they get experiences that help them become wise at some point, And so it's knowledge and experience, but even that, there's more to it than that even. It has to be some way that it's applied to, to help people and to just make the world a better place, and to, it has a positive kind of connotation when you talk about wisdom. That has to be part of it. At least the wise people I know, that's a big part of who they are, and that's kind of what separates, those people from a lot of other smart people that I know. So I think of those three things as being, part of how I would define that, and we all know those people. So I have my props with me. One is I read this worn-out book here. It says Words of Wisdom on the front, and it's really a devotion I read most mornings. And it's the Psalms and the Proverbs. And like King Solomon wrote the Proverbs, most of them. He sort of personifies wisdom as a person, and it's a person that we want to seek to be with and to love and to be like. But he also talks about it like it's a path or a way to follow and to be on. It's mentioned over 100 times in the Proverbs, that word path. So it's kind of like a noun and a verb, or it's got an action part to it, so it's not just a single thing that you can just lay your hands on. It's got an intangible part that is that's a little bit hard to define. It's one of those things to me, like it's easy to spot it, or people that have wisdom, but it's kind of hard to explain it or to quantify it. And so the value of wisdom is part of our heritage here, and part of what we strive to do, and I think it kind of gets at the core of what makes Brookstone special.
I think honor is an integral part of Brookstone School and the culture of Brookstone. And I tell students all the time, I think sometimes when students, especially new students to Brookstone, initially hear about honor or the honor code, sometimes they think of it as just more rules to follow, things that make it more restrictive. But the truth is, I think, and especially at Brookstone, that the honor code isn't about restricting you from anything. It's actually more about freedom. And I think our students have so much freedom at this school. That's one of the top things mentioned from a student who comes from outside the Brookstone family. They're like, wow, we have so much freedom here. And so much of that is because of the trust that's built up because of the honor code. If I think honor at its most basic level is just holding yourself to the same standards that you hold to others. We don't want anybody to lie to us. We don't want anybody to cheat us out of things. We don't want anybody to steal from us, obviously. So if we don't want people to do those things to us, we shouldn't do them to others. And the more that we buy into that, the more freedom we get. Obviously, it's become cliche here, but if you come to Brookstone, you don't see locks on lockers. You see students, especially in the upper school, roaming the halls a lot of different times. We have break, we have a lot of free time, and so much of that is because of the trust that's been built up between the faculty and the students, the administration and the students. And so much of that is because our students are buying in to the honor code and to honor. And I think ultimately, though, the reason, of course, like we want to teach kids to not cheat on tests and, do their own work and all of that. But But so much more than that, we want them to grow up to be people of integrity. And I think we want Brookstone students to, at some point, be the type of person that, when bad things happen, when everything hits the fan, when you're in a moment of crisis or a difficult time comes to pass, we want our students to be the type of people that others look to and can count on. And they can be men and women of their word, and they can be people that others lean on in times of crisis. And that sort of thing doesn't just happen. You don't just decide to be a person of honor or a person of integrity. It's something that you have to practice. It's something that you have to be taught. And I think at Brookstone, we do a really good job of trying to create that culture of honor and trying to teach that. Because you can't just wake up in a big moment and decide to make a courageous decision or decide to do something with a lot of integrity. It's something that you have to work at, you have to practice, you have to screw up a number of times and be taught and guided in the right direction. And I think we do a great job of that at Brookstone, and I think it's really important part of who we are.
Service to me is it's not just something that you do. It's not just a task that you complete. I think when we think of service, a lot of times we think of something we sign up for, a committee that we're on, or a volunteer responsibility, and those things are really important. But I think service is truly a way of life. I think it's a way of relating to other people. I think it's putting the needs of other people above your own. Laying aside your own agenda oftentimes for someone else, I think is what service means to me. My grandfather, Bill Turner, I know a lot of people know of his connection with servant leadership and maybe have read about servant leadership from his book or have learned something about servant leadership from his, maybe a speech that he's given. But I had the great privilege to learn about service from my grandfather for about 30 years of lifetime of being with him. And that was a real gift to see him live out the things that he wrote about. And probably I saw that most just with his family. That's who he was with when I was around him. And my grandmother, he was always meeting her every demand with grace. And, sometimes it was, if she was worried we didn't have enough food, he would run out quickly and go grab something extra, always with a smile on his face. He would complete whatever task she asked him to do. And I know he probably complained from time to time, but I really never saw him do that. He was always just very sacrificial of his time, and with both her and also with the rest of the family. And often we would just stop by unannounced to their house, that we kind of knew that towards the end of the workday he would be home. And sometimes we would let them know we were coming and sometimes we wouldn't. And he would always stop whatever he was doing. I never remember feeling like we were an interruption. He always made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. And I don't remember him talking about himself. He was always asking me about what I was doing, what I was up to. And I think that demonstrated, his nature, which was always to put the other person first, always to show and demonstrate love to them. And I think I also saw him do that in the way he treated other people just out and about in the community, the way he demonstrated servant leadership amongst others, that he would be very intentional in his relationships, very giving and sharing of his time. And I was rereading his book last night. I've read it several times, but it's been a while since I have read through it, and it definitely made me miss him. But there was one little part that struck me. He said, "Our task is to tear down walls that people build to protect and replace those walls with bridges that connect." And I think that's what serving was to him. It wasn't about completing a task. It was about loving a person. It was about building a bridge. It was about building a bridge with people he knew, and also building bridges with people that he lived in different parts of town or lived in different offices that he would want to connect with. And I just have always admired that, and seek to do the same thing as I serve, to make sure that I'm not just completing a task. Because if we don't do that with love, then I think we miss the point. It's about building that relationship. I think that's what's really important. So I hope that the students here will feel that, and that service extends beyond just the things that they sign up for, on the piece of paper, the things that they do, but that they'll see that the way they relate to others, if it's the students in their classes, that, the ones that sometimes need a little extra, help when they don't listen to directions, or maybe even the siblings that live in their homes, that those are the ones that are a little trickier to serve and to love, but that I think hopefully this will create a new mindset with students, that they say, wow, it's better for me to look to the interest of others than my own. That's a better way to exist in the world. And I love that our students are constantly pointed in that direction, because it's really not our nature. Our nature is to seek out what's best for ourselves. But I think we find our true value, our true purpose and joy in life when we seek to serve others.
I think we generally take respect for granted. Like, you grow up and your parents teach you, to say yes ma'am, no ma'am, yes sir, no sir, and you just do it automatically without thinking about why you're doing it. And we should think about why we're doing it, because when you think about the definition of respect, when I think about the definition of respect, it's more about admiring somebody, looking at them and understanding who they are and what's important to them, who they are deeply, what their culture means to them, how they carry themselves. And so if you're saying yes ma'am or no ma'am, you're also respecting who that person is. You're looking at them and saying, you're a person that I look up to, you're a great person. And I think in a school setting, if we're talking about leaders, if we're talking about students going out and becoming leaders, if you have a kind of a conscious idea of what respect is, if you're in a work environment or a school environment and you're talking to your friends or you're talking to your coworkers, then you're really looking at them as people you admire, or people that you can learn from, or you can bounce ideas off of and respect what they have to say or respect who they are. And I think that's important in a school setting, because we are, from the littles all the way up, we're teaching them that the people they interact with in classrooms, even if they're not the same, or they're not from the same background, or they don't share the same family values necessarily, that we admire who you are. We know that you're here. We know that you're here for a reason. We know that you have a skill set that you can learn from, and that we should all respect that. And so I think it's probably one of the values we should put at the top of our list, because as people gathered together in the same environment, some lifers from the time they're from 3-year-old till 12th grade, that you really should be thinking about like this person and what they bring and how you admire them. And there has to be one thing, at least one thing, that you admire. So I think about doing activities like when I love to do an activity with students where I put a piece of paper on their back and you write their name on it, and then silently you go around and write things you like about that person on the back. That's kind of a way to show respect. So a way to think about every student, even the ones you don't talk to very often. What about them is important, or what about them do you admire or do you think is really important, or that they contribute to the community in a positive way. And so you take that paper off and you read it and you realize, oh, somebody thinks I'm cool or smart, or somebody thinks that or remembers when I helped them in math, and remembers that, when I fell, they helped, pick up books or something like that. And all of that goes back to respect. Like, would you walk by somebody if they were hurt? Right? Or would you stop and check on them? And that's a part of respect too. It's a part of compassion and empathy, but it's also a part of like respecting your community. So I think on the school level as well, when I think of teaching students respect,
because when I am in a building with kids, I bring my whole self too. So it's more like teaching them what their families would want to know, but also I think about teaching them what I would want them to go out into the world and do as a student and as a person. And that is to be able to interact with people on a level where they're not judgmental and more open to understanding who that person is. It's sending them into a world where they know how to interact with people in a respectful and a positive way, and in a way where when the person they're interacting with leaves the room, they say, whoa, that was a great person. That kid is respectful. They're on it. They really know how to interact in a positive way.
Leadership, when you talk about good leadership, I think that we need to understand that when you're a good leader, it also entails many attributes. And that means that you are empathetic. That means that you are also trustworthy, that you're a visionary, that you know how to gather and motivate a group of people to make the right decisions and the right choices. So when it comes to leadership, and especially our children, those are the attributes that we want our children to have. So as a leader, when it comes to parenting, we want to instill those values in our children. We know that if our children don't value or understand what good leadership is, that it could really have a very negative impact on their lives. When you don't know what leadership is or good leadership looks like, you can definitely fall down the wrong path. And so it is important that we understand or allow our children to understand that they must have the confidence in themselves, that they know that they are loved, valued, and that we give them the nurturing environment so that they can reach their full potential. And once they believe in themselves and trust their own intuition when it comes to making those right decisions, that the leadership in and of itself just opens so many opportunities that are positive and that will lead them in the right direction. So it's very important. Those who end up going down the wrong path is usually because of lack of self-confidence, because there was no one there to pour into them to let them know that they can make a difference, that they do matter, and that they have the skills to really do a lot of good in the world and in the community. So we want to start early instilling our children with the leadership values that we know that they need in order to succeed in the world. As you prepare to leave the walls of Brookstone and to enter into the real world, just know that you are a leader. You have what it takes to make a difference. The values that you have, use them to the best of your abilities. Don't let the talents that you know you possess just sit there. When you know that you can use those in any way that you choose, but I do recommend that you use them for the good. Let everything that you do always use them to make a difference in the lives of others. When you're out in the real world and you compare yourselves to others, that's the one thing. And don't compare yourselves to others. We all have our own gifts and talents. And in leadership, everyone leads differently. Leadership is not the same. It doesn't look the same for everyone. So know your strengths. And that is what you should focus on. You won't be able to do everything, but you can do most things that you are strong and talented in. So focus on your strengths and don't compare yourselves to others. You may arrive at your destination a little bit later or even earlier, but at the end of the day, if you're true to who you are, you arrive at your destination, and that is all that matters in the end.